Welcome everyone to the first Courseware Store Publishers webinar. We could not be more grateful for everyone here today, and we're really excited to get started of what we're hoping becomes a series. Just some little housekeeping. All the attendees do remain muted throughout the webinar, but please feel free to put any questions in the Q&A box to your bottom right, and we'll address as many of them as possible at the end of the webinar. Joining me today is Nat Dunn, founder and CEO of Webucator and Courseware Store, as well as Ann Weber and the team from Waypoint Ventures. A quick overview of today's 1-hour webinar. Starting us off, you'll be hearing from Nat about how Courseware Store came to be, and he'll be demonstrating the user experience in Courseware Store. We'll then hear from Ann Weber about her current courseware offerings and what she's working on next. Last, but certainly not least, we'll dive in with Waypoint Ventures team about course offerings and labs. We'll wrap it up with any Q&A as the time allows. Nat, if you're ready.
Ready. Thanks, Alicia. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Oh, I think you need to make me presenter, right? Throw me the ball there.
We practiced this. There it goes.
There it is. Yeah, right. All right, like Alicia said, I started Webucator. It was in 2003, and initially it was just me running around delivering classes that I had written. And this was, what I'm sharing now is the first class I wrote, this Introduction to SQL class, which is a long living class, selling now in Courseware Store, 2-day SQL class. SQL hasn't changed that much, at least at the intro level, in 21 years. So we delivered this on site. We also ran public classes, and we became a Microsoft partner in 2008 to start delivering official Microsoft courseware or Microsoft courses. And the first course that we delivered was this one right here, this mock 6236 course, which is now custom and hasn't been delivered in a long time. It's a 2008 SQL Server course. This we delivered in May of 2008, and at that time, Element K was managing all the Microsoft courseware. And they did for a while, and then handed over to Arvado. And getting to the kind of origin of Courseware Store, last year, in the beginning of last year, Arvado announced that they were no longer going to run the courseware marketplace because Microsoft had made all of their official curriculum free. And that just left those of us who sold community courseware selling our courseware to learning partners who were buying community courseware. And Webucator was on both ends of that. We were selling community courseware we'd written, including that SQL course. And we were buying courseware from people like Waypoint and Ann Weber, who are here with us today, and using that to teach our own classes. So when we saw that marketplace going away, we were concerned. How are we going to get that courseware to teach our classes? And where is this source of revenue? How are we going to make up the source of revenue that we had? And so we began writing code almost immediately to build a replacement marketplace. And we, having used that marketplace from both ends, had a lot of ideas for how we could make it better for us, both as a publisher selling courseware and as a training company buying courseware. So better for us and for all the publishers and training companies who were using it. And we did a soft launch in May, the month before Courseware Marketplace closed down. And then in June, we were up and running when that marketplace closed down. And we got almost all of the publishers who were actively selling courseware in Courseware Marketplace to join Courseware Store. Not all of them, but almost all of them. And it has been great, worked very smoothly. And so we've been very happy with it. So those publishers include Ann Weber, and each publisher has their own page in Courseware Store. So if you go to any one of their courses, you'll see the publisher here, Ann Weber, and then you can click the publisher. It's just for me. You can click the publisher and see all the different courses they have in the marketplace. So these are Ann's, and then these are Waypoint's courses that they have. If anyone used the old Courseware marketplace, they'll see a very familiar kind of search and tagging catalog where you can see the whole catalog, Courseware catalog up here, and then you can just search for your courseware, or you can find specific courseware in a category by checking the category over here. I'm going to pick Ann's SQL Server Integration Services course. This has the whole description of a course as you'd expect, so you can read all about it. This one has a lab add-on. These are Skillable labs that we've integrated with Skillable so that you can buy a lab add-on when you're buying the courseware. For some of our courses, we have Ann's course in here now, and we hope to be adding Waypoints soon. But when we have that integrated lab, you'll see that you can have the add-on right here in the upper right-hand corner, and you can click to view the lab details. And this shows you a screenshot of the lab and gives you some information about what you're getting with this lab. And where we don't have an add-on, back to Waypoints. Right now, we don't have add-ons yet for Waypoints labs, but they have labs available. Yeah, so this course has labs available at Skillable and Extreme that you can buy directly from them. The info icon will tell you a little bit more about that. So you can get labs, you just can't buy them through Courseware Store yet when checking out. Okay, so then if I were to license this, I just click license. I can pick however many I want. I can decide whether I want labs, whether or not I want a lab for the trainer as well, because if the trainer just taught this course recently, they might already have a lab available to them, so you might not need that. And then entering the class dates, which helps us know how to support you, when to be available if we know when the classes are running. And then just a normal checkout system here. And once that's purchased, then you'll get a bunch of redemption keys, and you can send those redemption keys to your students. And when you do, they'll go to this redeem courseware, they'll put the redemption key in there, redeem it. And as soon as they do that, the courseware will show up on their My Courseware page, which is available right here. Because I'm also in the system as a trainer, I see the trainer files that are available as well. Students would just see the student files. So where there are PowerPoints in courses, I would be able to download the PowerPoint. If there's any extra trainer files, like for this one, I'd be able to download those trainer files as a trainer. Again, students would just see the student files. And if a lab was purchased, then they'll see this launched lab as well. Then they can just click right from Courseware Store on Launch Lab, and it opens up the lab. And if you're familiar with Skillable Labs, this is just a Skillable lab that's going to open up. I'll let it walk through the very beginning of it, but these take a minute to open up, and Ann's going to show a lab later, so I won't spend too much time looking at this. But you can see that they don't have to log in separately to Courseware, to Skillable. They can just launch the lab right from Courseware Store. Yeah, so that's the lab. I'm going to minimize that. And then the course itself, they can just click this open course and it loads. It's specific to the student. You can see there's a watermark on it here. And I believe that is everything, Alicia, that I wanted to share. So I'm going to hand it back to you, or let you steal it back from me.
You're actually going to hand it to Ann Weber.
Oh, that's right. All right, I'll do that. I'm going to stop sharing. And I've handed it to you, Ann.
Thanks, Nat. I really appreciate that handoff and the information that you provided. Again, like everyone else, I'm happy to be here and present you with just a little bit of information about my background, how I became an author and de facto, I guess, publisher. As I started working with the Courseware Store, I became a publisher as well. And so I started off eons ago, back in the 90s, last century. It sounds kind of funny, but certifying, I went out of college, worked for Novell. And so I became a master CNE while I was there working for Novell. And then we moved to the East Coast and started working doing support. And I found that with 2 young children, a little while after my son was born, the pager was just not working anymore. In fact, I had to go out on an emergency call when he was about 5 days old or a week old. And I thought that's not going to work anymore. So I got my CNI, my certified Novell instructor, and jumped over to the training world. And I've stayed there ever since. I just love helping other people figure out how to use products and do things. And so I've stayed in the training world. But in 95, we moved to the DC area. And the company I went to work for was both Microsoft and Novell certified. And I kind of saw the handwriting on the wall that Novell was slowly but surely going away. And so in 1996, I dual certified. And I realized when I was trying to find all these dates and I looked out there, June 17th was my 29th anniversary. So I've been at MCT now for 29 years. So I've been doing this a while. And during that time, I love training, but I would get frustrated, especially with the Microsoft courseware. I eventually, let the Novell go away. Started off the Microsoft side doing everything. I did the full MCSE route back then. That was 7 or 8 exams. Now you can get, a certification with 1 exam. And I fell in love with SQL because I did that as my elective and I had done databases in college and it just brought that back to me. But I was also doing Windows and all the other stuff with it. And around 2000 was the last time I certified on Windows. I just said, there's too much. SQL 2005 was too wide of a product. There was too much going on. I needed to focus. So I focused on the Microsoft SQL Server side and things that touch it, like, well, now Power BI, a little bit of Crystal reports. If it touched SQL Server, then I would move into it. But otherwise, I stayed straight SQL focused. And around the 2005 timeframe, I guess it was 2003, 2004, Microsoft was working on their next version. And I found an email address that I could email them. And I said, hey, I've been a trainer for a long time. I have some suggestions on order of the content, materials in the content, stuff like that. I would love to talk to whoever's willing to listen. And they really surprised me and they wrote back and they said, well, we've got a bunch of projects right now and we'd like to hire you as a subject matter expert and work with us on our certification program. So I went over and worked with that. And during that time, I was able to make content, make a bunch of contacts. And when SQL 2008 came out, I ended up writing courseware, both for Microsoft. And back then it was anonymous. People didn't know your name. If you were writing the courseware, it just said, Microsoft content. Now they actually tell you who the authors are. And I also worked for a third-party company writing courseware, which was how I got introduced to Webucator. And Nat reminded me which course. I taught an analysis services course for them in 2008. So that was when we first were introduced. And so that was kind of cool. But I found that I was so restricted. The one company only wanted me to upgrade the old courseware and not add anything new or change anything around. And Microsoft comes out with this list and they're like, you're in charge of these 3 chapters in this order. You get 1 page per topic, make it work. And that just didn't work really well for me. So I decided to start working on my own courseware development. And the first one I wrote completely by myself was my SQL Server reporting services, because Nat showed that 2008 class where they had a reporting services class and they had an analysis services class. And then on the next version, they decided to put everything together into one and they didn't have individual classes anymore. But a lot of my students and a lot of the companies I was training for still wanted dedicated reporting services only classes. So I wrote that course. And I loved being able to teach for my own courseware, and I had several companies that were buying from me directly. My reporting services class, I worked with a local training center here in Ohio, and they put it up on the courseware store, not the courseware store, the old marketplace. And then when SSIS, I wrote a book for that came to be and decided I wanted to try and get it up there. I didn't want to have to deal with Arvado. I wanted to go with someone who really knew the system already. And so I reached out to Nat and said, hey, would Webucator be interested in, sharing profits, but giving me all of your knowledge so we can get the courseware out there? So we've teamed up quite a bit, and I'm excited to team up with with Waypoint here today. Webucator and Waypoint, two close names there, because I've been working with them for a long time as well. I worked as a technical editor with them, and we can't find where we crossed paths, but we know we crossed paths. Meg and I crossed paths eons ago. It might have been when she was at Microsoft, but we've crossed paths multiple times in the industry, so it's pretty cool. So my general philosophy when I'm teaching and in my courseware is I like to do as much hands-on as possible. And so I have try-it exercises within each chapter. And rather than having PowerPoint slides where the instructor has to keep going back and forth between PowerPoint and demos, we actually try and do teaching from the try-it exercises. And then the students are learning with their hands on at that point in time rather than just a demo. And then the labs at the end of every chapter, they get to try it on their own. And so that's just kind of my general philosophy. So my current courseware, we've seen a couple of these and talked about them. The SQL Server Reporting Services for report writers. It is designed not for the really strong IT team that, knows everything. It works for them as well. We just move a little bit quicker. But I started at the very beginning so that your analysts, your report writers can learn the tools and do that. That's a 4-day class that runs on anything from SQL 2016 to 2019. The reason I haven't said 2022 is because I haven't had a chance to test everything, but nothing changed in the product. So it should be fine in 2022. There were no significant changes, but I don't want to say that it's compatible until I've tested everything. We also have a Creating Reports with Report Builder. The 4-day SSRS class covers one day with Report Builder after they've learned all the topics. Here's a new tool. Let's review everything with the new tool. Report Builder only covers the one tool because some companies just don't want their people learning both, or they only want them learning the Report Builder. My SQL Queries for Analysts is a T-SQL specific class. The one that Nat mentioned, his 2-day class, they have information for you on all versions of SQL. This one really focuses on the Microsoft SQL. We go over how to use Management Studio and tips and tricks for creating things specifically in that Microsoft world. And it is a 4-day class, and it ends with a comprehensive lab that covers everything they've done in the class and does not give them an answer key. It's a kind of work on your own type thing. The instructor's still there to help, but they go from the very beginning of learning how to use the tool all the way through working on their own. So it's a really cool concept that I was excited to add into that class. And then, as I mentioned earlier, my SQL Server Integration Services is the one class that you saw a little bit of earlier. And that's what I'm going to just walk you through a little bit to see some of it. On the labs, and so this was the lab that Nat had shown you earlier through Skillable. And there are resources pages. If you've done this with Microsoft or other classes before, there's usually, there could be multiple servers and the students can put their passwords and all in. But the one thing that's different about mine, because Waypoint's going to show you some labs later as well, is when I built my labs, I really wanted the students who knew what was going on to have a challenge and just get general directions that will allow them to succeed in the lab and continue on to the next lab. So they have enough information, because my labs build for the most part so that they can practice going from step A to step B to step C. But if they're really good, they can switch this high level and they can simply say, oh yeah, I know how to run this wizard. I know how to pick these options. I give them enough that they're not going to pick something that's going to break something 2 labs down the road. But I don't tell them click by click. In the step by step, they pretty much get click by click what to do. And in the books, especially the Report Builder book and the Reporting Services book, we include a lot of screenshots. because sometimes it's really hard for beginners to figure out where on this huge application with all these options to go. In addition to those labs, I also, as I mentioned, have those triad exercises. And again, from the Courseware store, I just opened up my T-SQL book. And as we go into each chapter, there's information about what's covered in that chapter and then what files or folders they need to be able to to do all the practices in that chapter. So if we go down like to chapter 2, and you can jump in these books, which is really nice that they've got those on the side that you can jump. So, oh, and there's no class. So I picked another one without class files. Let me find one that's going to have class files here. There we go. So they have inline samples so that the instructor doesn't have to type everything that's pictured in the book. They can open up the inline samples. The triad exercises are for the hands-on, and then finally the labs. And so a triad exercise comes through and we tell them exactly what they need to do. And they start off highlighting and running things. And then later in the class, they're typing it in on their own. Really long queries, I'll usually give them a text file to help out if someone has problems with typing. That doesn't hold them back from learning. So everything's out there for them. So my what's next on my slides, I had a bunch of question marks. I'm really excited to announce that I'm working on a paginated reports tool, our book for Power BI Report Builder. Microsoft has a lot on the Power BI desktop and the Power BI service, but Report Builder was one of those holes that we found that it used to have one lab in the old courseware with Microsoft, and now even that's been removed and it's just talked about. There's not a lab there at all. There's like a 5-minute blurb on it. And so I have taught this class several times, but originally I took it from my SSRS class, and it's all built with SQL in the background. And I found when I went to teach it, everyone's using it with Power BI data sets in the background. So I'm rewriting it to put the Power BI data sets in the background versus SQL Server, and changing around the order a little bit. But that course, hopefully in the next couple of months, will be out. I'm also a consultant, and I've had a whole bunch of consulting come up lately, and those types of things take precedence because people's servers are down and they need help. And so unfortunately, I was hoping to have this done by this webinar, but that just didn't happen, but it's going to be coming soon. I want to thank you again for your attention. And if you have any questions, just reach out to Webucator. You'll be receiving some emails from them and information, or on LinkedIn. You can reach them as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions during the Q&A that you may have as well. Thanks. Alicia, did you want to take the bouncing ball back, or am I handing off?
I am going to move that to Meg.
Okay.
Meg, if you and Waypoint Ventures team here is ready.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Nat. Thanks, Alicia. This is a great idea, doing this webinar, and Waypoint's really happy to be here. And Anne, I want to thank you as well. You're right. I can't remember where where our paths crossed. Probably was back in the Microsoft days. But you know, we couldn't, there's a lot of intro to SQL courses out there, but we really wanted to have our own in the market, and we couldn't have done it without you. So thanks for that. And we're really proud to share the platform, the publisher platform, with you here today. First, let me make some quick intros. On board with us today in the webinar are a few folks. Damir Dizdarovic, he's our IT and SME manager. We actually struggle with a title for Damir every now and then. He's also a technical writer. He lives in Sarajevo in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And boy, he's done it all. He's an MCT going back to 2005, an MVP from 2008, and Microsoft Regional Director from 2017. And Demir on our team is kind of where the buck stops when it comes to deciding what courses we're going to develop and what's going to go in them. So he also drafts the design of most of the courses as well. And also with us is Conan Kezema. Conan is our lab developer, and he hails from Winnipeg, Manitoba in Canada. And he's a network consultant. He's been an MCT since 1998. And darn it, I thought we were going to have bragging rights for Conan having the record for being an MCT, but I think Ann beat him by at least a couple of years. He has his own company, Kez Technical Resources, but as far as Waypoint is concerned, he's the world's best VM builder and the best lab writer and tester. And we really depend on that expertise to have some world-class labs accompanying our courseware. And saving the best for last, my partner in crime and co-owner of Waypoint is Danica Richard. These days, she hails from a tiny little farming town called Meaford in Ontario, Canada. It's a couple of hours north of of Toronto. It's an absolutely gorgeous place. Not long ago, however, as if running a company for 20 years wasn't hard enough, for at least half of that time, she was sailing a boat, circumnavigating North America on I'm going to say a 42-foot sailboat. I could never keep it straight. That was quite the feat. Anyway, this crew's been together since Waypoint got started. Back then, however, we were just a project management company working exclusively at Microsoft with Worldwide Learning. We're the ones who managed the teams of IDs and editors and SMEs, the graphic artists, the publishers, whatever it took to develop learning content, including, and scariest of them all, the Microsoft product managers. Didn't take long, however, before we figured out that it was smarter for us to own those resources in-house. So in not too long a time, we grew into our own learning content company. And I'd say all in all, during that time of writing all of those mock courses, we probably wrote more than 100 mock courses if you include the ones that were revisions when the software revised. And during that same time, in addition to writing the mock courses, that we expanded to work and did work for hire in a lot of other Microsoft groups, a lot of other organizations like IT Showcase. We really loved them. Customer sales and support, some marketing and HR organizations, and eventually landed with Microsoft Learn. All the while still sticking around with Worldwide Learning, where we still also have a presence. So we've pretty much been joined at the hip with the mothership all this time. Then COVID happened in 2020. I think that changed the game for just about everybody. It's one of the reasons that Microsoft stopped supporting or selling mock courseware. But when we woke up from that nightmare, we found ourselves in the IT business and shook ourselves off and decided it was a pretty nice place to be. I probably wouldn't have said this in 2019, but it turns out we really kind of like being our own boss. And even better, now we're providing the same courses that we used to write for Microsoft back to Microsoft. That's pretty cool. Demir and Conan are here. They're going to show you around one of our courses in a minute. But first up, I'm going to let Danica step in. She's going to say a little bit more about Waypoint and Courseware Store's relationship. Madam.
Thanks, Meg. So yeah, if you are not familiar with Courseware Store, I strongly encourage you to take the time to review the site and see what they have to offer. As Nat indicated earlier, Courseware Store is basically picking up where Arvado left off with Courseware Marketplace, but in my opinion, doing a much better job. And if you are already a buyer from Courseware Store, then you're going to be able to attest to the variety of technologies and topics that are available, as well as how user-friendly their system is. And on this slide, all of the Waypoint courses listed here are available via Courseware Store. Nat and Alicia and their team are just extremely responsive, and they care about their clients. And that really resonated with Waypoint and was a major factor when we were deciding to sell our content on Courseware Store. You know, plain and simple, we wanted to make sure our clients would be looked after, and they are. We were really impressed with how quickly they were able to get a user-friendly and do-it-yourself system up and running. And as a publisher, when I was learning Courseware Store and how to input our content, I just couldn't stop talking, and I'm sure Meg can attest to this, about the ease of use and more importantly, the up-to-date reporting, which is just now available at our fingertips. I mean, at any given time, if we want to see how our courses are performing, we can just go and check the report, and we don't have to reach out to anybody and ask them to produce the report. It's there, and more than anything, it's there, but the reporting is accurate. And that really is a standard that should have been available to us years ago. So it's just extremely refreshing to be in control of your own content, and Courseware Store does offer that. There's very little that we can't do ourselves, and you don't have to go through a change order process to fix a typo. Although, side note, you won't find any in our content because our instructional designers and our editors are top notch. So I do have to say, you know, at the early stages of working with Courseware Store, any issues that were reported, and I will admit that the majority of those were user error, but Nat never made me feel silly or stupid or anything like that. They reviewed whatever was reported, they fixed, or they explained and taught so that you knew for the future. And any suggestions that we made, you know, that we thought might have helped, were always considered, and really where applicable, they were implemented. So it's that type of teamwork that just really makes this relationship and the whole process so easy. As a publisher, we always want to hear how great our content is, but we also want to know what's on your wish list, what's working for you, what doesn't work for you, what would make training easier, or what would make being a student easier or more effective. So regardless of whether you are, you know, a learning partner, a publisher, a student, or a trainer, you are the end user of both our content and Courseware Store. So really don't be shy to let us know what it is you need and what you want to make life easier. And never ones to sit still for too long, as Nat demonstrated earlier when he was speaking. They've come up with a solution for one-stop shopping where the labs can be purchased along with the courseware. And really, that is just something that is a huge benefit, and something that we heard from many of our clients when we would pose the question, hey, what would you like? One-stop shopping was it. It was a big item and very important. So this is really an example of how the Courseware Store team listens and reacts. And as Nat mentioned, I'm just going to mention again that Waypoint's labs aren't currently available via Courseware Store, but we really are super excited about that happening in the future. So stay tuned for that. So as you can see, Waypoint and the relationship and the partnership between Waypoint and Courseware Store is just extremely strong and successful. And Nat and Alicia and their team are just a true pleasure to work with. And we really strongly encourage you to engage with them if you aren't already. And no, they didn't pay me to say that. It really, really is true. So I'm going to hand this over to Demir, and he's going to talk about what sets us apart with our courseware. So take it away, Demir.
Thanks, Danica. Hello, everybody. What sets us apart? Well, there's a lot of things that sets us apart from other courseware vendors, but I would say at the first place, it's really a lot of experience that we bring to the table when it comes to courseware. What's maybe the most important is our experience that we had with Microsoft Learning, because we've been working with for Microsoft Learning for the mock courses for many years. And also, which is very important, is that all our authors of the courseware are actually MCTs and the active trainers. And not just that, many of them also have an on-field experience working with these technologies, and they are able to provide real-life examples of these technologies and how to use them, and out of the lab environments. Because usually in lab environments everything works, but in real life that's not like that sometimes. So having in mind that Microsoft unfortunately stopped selling mock courses, well, at the first place we tried to fill in that gap by providing courses, as Danica just showed, about technologies that are still in a very huge demand, like Windows Server at the first place, and there are no mock courses that cover that. And also the M365 portfolio, which is most used business suite currently as a cloud-based, also to replace the mock courses which doesn't exist anymore, or they are very low quality as provided as free courses. So Mac, maybe you can just switch the slide there. So what we try really when developing our courses is to be consistent through the whole course, which is very important thing to do, especially when the few persons are actually writing the same course. That's very rare when that only one person actually writes the whole course. So being consistent is a very, very important thing for us. Clarity when teaching and for learning, no matter if it's an online learning or if it's an in-classroom learning, being very clear on what you want to communicate and what's important for students to learn is some of our key priorities. And of course, the precision. There is a lot of technologies available currently, a lot of options in these technologies, and you should be very careful when writing about that, especially for cloud services that UI is changing all the time. Microsoft likes to do that, especially where they like to change names of the products, and we really make sure that we update that very frequently and keep these courses up to date to what you actually see in the UI. You can switch. Yeah, this is actually an example of the design of how we actually structure our courses. We are still keeping this outline which was used in the mock courses, but because that really fits well, where we divide the whole course in modules, and module in lessons, and lessons in topics. Also, when we are writing a lesson and writing a topic, we are very careful about not providing very long parts of the text, and trying to split that with some parts that you want to emphasize, and some notes, and some sometimes interesting facts or some real life examples. So when you are reading that you are actually not boring, because not everything is interesting actually, and we need to make sure that we also provide some fun facts from time to time about the product that we are writing about. Each course is also coupled with the slides, which are mostly used by the MCTs or trainers. The slides also have the design, which is similar to the mock courses. So all these trainers that have been teaching mock courses for a very long time, as I did, will not have any trouble to use our slides. And we actually try to provide the most important things on slides and provide as much graphics as possible. We try to avoid providing much text on a slide, because that's pretty bad. That it's just removing the focus from the trainer. And it is also very important to include the people with accessibility needs, so they can follow this course, they can learn from it. And for each graphics, we provide an alternative text, so that attendees which have an accessibility needs can get the information about what we actually show in a graphics. So we also try to provide quite a few demonstrations within our courses, because as Anne said, it is always best to show and to learn by practice. So whenever it is convenient, we either suggest a trainer to perform a demonstration together with a topic, or we create a topic with a demonstration and with very detailed steps of what the trainer should show to the students step by step, which demonstration he or she need to perform. This is an example of how a demonstration step works and look like. And that is actually usually at the end of the lesson, or at the end of the series of the topics where we want to circle one technology to actually show it in practice. Of course, trainer can provide demonstration by when they want, even besides these what we provide like this. Of course, each module finished with a lab. Lab is a very important part of our courses because in that part we provide real tasks. We try to simulate real life tasks as much as possible, and to let students go through the most important procedures and to reinforce the learning from the module that was just delivered by a trainer. We usually provide labs with the high-level steps and labs with the detailed steps, which means that more experienced students can go and follow the high-level steps, which are not step-by-step, but if they have enough experience or they were following the demonstration carefully, they are able to do that without help. And for the beginners and for the people who need more instructions, we also provide step-by-step instructions. What is very important, especially for the cloud courses, we are very careful about that we update these lab and demonstration steps each time that Microsoft updates their UI, which is pretty often. After the labs, we have informative knowledge checks, which are usually a series of questions or question suggestions. This is example. We have true or false questions. We have sometimes multiple choice question, and also we love to provide the discussion-based questions which trainers can use to actually initiate some discussion about a technology that they were discussing in a module or in a lesson. Also, these questions can be served for self-paced learning to test the knowledge and test the understanding of what we actually provided and learned in this module. Okay, what's also very important is the mapping of these courses to the actual roles. You probably know that Microsoft several years ago introduced so-called role-based certification in its portfolio of the exams. So now you don't just pass the exams to get a certification, you get also some kind of role for the certificate that you're actually achieving. Although there are no single one-to-one mapping between courses and the exams and roles, we are trying to cover in these courses as much as possible of these roles that are related to the specific products. Because of that, these courses are, let's say, multi-purpose. And by taking one course, for example, the identity with the Windows Server, you can also cover some parts of the Windows Server role, the system admin role, the Active Directory admin role, and other roles. And also that this can serve as a preparation for exam. Also, to repeat, there is no single one-to-one point mapping, but the practice shows that these courses are very good preparation for role-based certification that Microsoft provides. And also, even if you don't want to be certified, this learning path mapping can show you actually which course you can select and based on a role that you want to achieve by taking the course. Okay.
Thanks, Damir. I think Conan is up next. He's going to show you the ropes around our labs, and I'm going to have to figure out how to stop sharing and over to
me.
Yeah.
All right, you guys should be able to see my screen now. So one of the most important things, if you ask any student, the most important thing in a quality course is a lot of times the hands-on lab experience. And so what I wanted to talk a little bit about is what makes Waypoint stand out in terms of their labs. Demir already kind of mentioned that, one main thing is that every one of our courses and our labs are designed by SMEs that work as consultants, teach the content, and so they know exactly what to focus on for real world tasks and what to actually cover in the course and labs. The other main thing is that at least 35 to 40% of our course time is dedicated to the hands-on lab experience, in addition to the instructor-led content. All of our labs are 100% aligned with course content. So whatever they learn in the course, they'll be trying out in the labs and working with that. The other important thing, especially for Microsoft 365 and Azure courses and so on, is that these labs are tested and reviewed on an ongoing basis. As everybody knows, services names are changed, things are changed online, processes change, and so on. And so we need to make sure that these labs work at all times. And we have a quick process of being able to test and review and implement those changes on an ongoing basis. And as you've already seen a couple times, all of our labs are presented in an online hosted environment accessible from a web browser. So the beauty thing about that is that gone are the days of needing individual server hardware in your classroom that all has to meet minimum requirements and so on. All they need is basically a browser and to be able to access the environment. As you can see on your screen here, you've seen this a couple times, but this is basically a self-contained sandbox, allowing students to be able to complete their lab tasks. The nice thing about this is that they're not going to break their real environment. They're working with an online lab, which may or may not, depending on the course, have multiple virtual machines that they would actually be signing into and working on. As you can see here, I can switch between the virtual machines. The instructions for the lab tasks, you can see on the side here with basically a progress indicator to tell you exactly, where they are as they're continuing on with the actual steps. The other nice thing about this is that if you have students that have multiple monitors, they can actually go in and split this window so that this way they can switch it over to another monitor and then have a full screen for their actual lab, and then of course a full screen for their instructions as well. So that's the other nice thing about those instructions. In terms of a hosted lab experience, the nice thing is that this is totally convenient, it's flexible, and it still provides that full hands-on experience and to be able to test out exactly what they need to do and be able to kind of work with whatever they're learning in their actual courses as they go along. And that's pretty well all I have to really say about this. Mine's short and sweet, so I will stop sharing.
Thanks, Conan. I think you need to pass the ball back to me.
And I will pass it back to Meg. There we go. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks to everybody. Partners, our customers, Nat and Alicia at Courseware Store. But I also I want to thank Microsoft for years and years of opportunities to write content and to be involved and to be in this industry. And I specifically want to call out a program that we're working with right now called the Microsoft Software and Systems Academy, or MSSA program. They use Waypoint Courseware for the labs for this technical training program, which is an intensive technical training and transitioning for military service members and veterans to prepare for new careers. So they are currently using all of Waypoint's Windows Server courses in their cloud development and administration cohorts. So we're pretty happy and proud of that, and just wanted to call that out and thank them. Danica, I'm going to hand the reins over to you so you can
wrap it up
for us.
Yeah. So this will be really short and sweet. As the slide says, don't be shy. Like, really, don't be shy. Reach out to us. Let us know what you need, what you want, how things are going, what works, what doesn't. And really feel free to spread the good word about Courseware Store and Waypoint Courseware. So just a huge thank you for attending. We really do appreciate it. And I'm going to hand it back to Alicia to wrap up.
Thank you. Well, I wanted to thank everyone for attending the webinar. We are interested in any questions you have. Obviously, we used up our time today. So feel free to email those questions to courseware@courseware.store.com. It comes to myself and Nat. We'll be able to answer any of the questions, and always happy to get the publishers involved when required. Thank you again so much, and have a fantastic day.